Yeah, in today's session, we'll be discussing issues pertaining to acting appointment and responsibility allowance. I think you all know that an organization might appoint some people in acting capacity, and I think this kind of acting appointment tend to happen because, for example, there is a vacancy or whereby someone maybe has gone on leave, or maybe someone is on annual leave, on sick leave, or maybe they has been transferred to another branch, or at the same time there's some kind of, for example, promotion, and sometimes it could be someone has died, just died, and also maybe has gone for maternity leave. In some cases, he has also been dismissed, or someone has resigned, and there's a bit of a vacancy, yeah, whereby it could be a temporary vacancy or a permanent vacancy. So you might find that there is always need for someone to fill in that particular position. So in line with the terms and conditions of service, someone might be appointed maybe by the chief executive officer or by the head of department, depending on what the terms and conditions, even sometimes by the board, depending on, for example, if the position of a CEO has fallen vacant or has been suspended, then maybe the board might have to appoint someone to fill that particular position. So I think what is important for us to appreciate is, one, when you are to choose who should be able to be appointed, it's not about the length of service, but sometimes we might consider issues of seniority. Who is the next person to assume that particular responsibility? And also you look at the qualifications. Does he have the right qualifications for the job, for example, that is to act? And also at the same time, you should look at the competency. Does he have the competency to carry out the responsibilities of that particular office that he has to act, for example? And maybe sometimes when there are 2-3 people, they might have to maybe compete for an interview, for example, to choose who should be able to act for that position. And also there's some cases, for example, there is 2 people, someone is in acting capacity and another, so, and maybe what kind of now payments can be made to such kind of a position, for example, when one is acting. Some people would say, for example, if you're acting, they would say maybe you'll be earning everything that the senior person, the position that you're acting was earning, for example. So if the CEO, for example, was earning 4 million and yourself you're earning like 3 million, so you'll be earning the 4 million. And maybe there was entitlement like a motor vehicle, a house, and all that. All those benefits, school fees for kids and all those benefits can be able to accrue to you. Because what you need to appreciate is acting appointment is not by law. You see what you have stated in your terms and conditions of service. So if you're in terms and conditions of service are stating that he will be earning everything that the incumbent of that position was earning, then there's nothing wrong with that. So you might find that there are moments whereby, for example, a person can act and also maybe just be earning the difference of the salary, and maybe these other allowances might not apply. So that's also depending on the policy of the organization. So for example, someone was earning 4 million and the one who is to act, for example, is earning 3 million. So you just be getting extra 1 million. So if you paid the 3 million plus the 1 million just to ensure that is the acting allowance. So it all depends on what is stated in your terms and conditions of service. And one of the problems that we have in Malawi and in most countries, when someone has been appointed to act on a position, to determine how long can one act on a position, because in the absence of the law, that's what the problem comes in, whereby the law is not specific on acting appointment and also how long can one act. You might find the terms and conditions of service should be able to guide an organization, because the one acting is just acting to the point after this particular person who is on leave, or maybe if the position is vacant, until the position is filled or is back from suspension or is back from leave and all that. But it happens sometimes that the position, for example, is vacant, maybe someone has resigned or has died, or has been terminated, you might find that someone who is now been appointed to act might act for ages, maybe 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So that's also a big problem in most organizations to fill the position. So the moment you realize that you have appointed someone in acting capacity and the position is really vacant, not like someone has gone to leave, for example, you might need to initiate process of recruiting someone to fill that position. So even if you see this particular person who is acting has got the capacity to perform, he can still apply for the job. Or sometimes in other sectors, you may not know to go for interviews. You may need just to assess this particular person after a certain period and confirm him in the position. Yeah, but sometimes depending on the policy of the organization, you might need to advertise, and also this person, if interested, can also what do apply. So that's what we need to appreciate. It's not automatic that when your one is acting, then substantially he'll be able to take over the position of that particular position. So this is one of the things that we need also to appreciate within the space of acting appointments. And you might find that when you're acting, you don't have to move from your office to the new office that you're acting, unless the nature of the job will need you to move. For example, if you are acting, for example, a personal assistant for the director of finance, for example, is to act as a personal assistant for the CEO, for example. So you might need to move, for example, from the senior, from the DOF to the CEO's office, because in short, you cannot be able to perform the two offices. You need to move in the office. But in a broader sense, there's no need, unless the job would allow you to move. For example, a branch manager from Zomba can move to Blantyre just because he has to act in Blantyre, so he'll be able to go into that particular office. But what we need to appreciate is where the offices are at the same place, and the one to act has got his own office might not have to move to the other office. So I think what you need to appreciate is that. And also at the same time, what is also important also to appreciate is that when one is acting, should continue servicing the office that he holds substantially. So, for example, if you are a director of finance and you have been asked to act as a CEO, it doesn't mean that you stop working as a director of finance, because you're still earning the salary of the director of finance, but only that you are acting as a CEO. And if you are to be assessed, you'll be assessed as a director of finance. And sometimes the performance of acting CEO shouldn't have an impact on the director of finance position. But unless if it's to do with the appointment to the CEO's office, then the performance will be assessed whether you have performed as a CEO, as acting CEO, then you should be able to be confirmed or in that regard. But sometimes you rate, for example, someone has not performed as acting CEO, but you might find that maybe as DOF is performing, but we assume to say he has failed both as a CEO, acting CEO, as also as a DOF. Yet this person has just, because of issues of, I think you have ever heard of issues of Peter's principle, or even Paxton's Peter's principle, whereby maybe sometimes someone can be able to, cannot perform as a CEO, but he can still perform as a director of finance, because that's the maximum he can go for that level. So these are some of the things that we need also to appreciate within the acting appointments. And also at the same time, when you have appointed someone into an acting position, it shouldn't lead to an appointment of someone also to act on his or her position. For example, you have appointed someone as a director of finance, as a CEO. You shouldn't appoint again the accountant to act as a director of finance, because this person is still continuing to work as what? As a director of finance. So this is a substantive position. He has to perform the functions of the substantive position. So that's why he's getting only the difference or the acting allowance and all that. So that's what we need also to appreciate. Yeah. So I think these are some of the things that we need to appreciate, to say why we should be able to not have to fill the one. So shouldn't create, when you're acting, shouldn't create a vacancy in another acting appointment also, unless the job would require you to move from one office to the other. And also there are certain jobs which you can do online, but the other jobs would require you to move physically to another place. So in that regard, you won't be able to appoint someone also to act on the other position. Yeah, but it shouldn't lead to many acting appointments. I think these are some of the things we should also be able to appreciate. And at the same time, I think the other issue that we also need to appreciate is issues related to for example, responsibility allowance, to say who is entitled to responsibility allowance. So this one happens, for example, in a situation whereby an employee who can be employed as an accountant, but you might find that there's also a corresponding position, for example, in procurement as a procurement officer. But the accountant and procurement officer, they are on the same grade. So in this kind of arrangement, then the procurement officer has resigned, or maybe has been suspended, or has died, and all other things. So, but you feel maybe the subordinate in that particular procurement cannot be able to handle the procurement. So you ask the accountant to also perform the procurement issues, for example. Yeah, could be the HR manager, it could be the accountant working, combining the HR role, could be the HR combining with the procurement, or the procurement guy also doing the HR things, but also even the ICT person doing the procurement things, or the ICT person doing the HRs, depending on whether you have seen that person has good capacity to do such kind of tasks. So when you have done that, the person has to be paid what we call, other organizations would say, responsibility allowance, which is covering for the other responsibility that he is performing. Yeah, so he has got an added responsibility, so he's always paid. So sometimes it's a percentage of the salary, could be 20%, 50%, even sometimes 100%, depending on the organization conditions of service, on how they define responsibility allowance. Some would not have the responsibility allowance, but some employers would have what? In responsibility allowance. So this is some of the things that we also need to appreciate whenever we are talking about responsibilities, additional responsibilities. But this responsibility allowance cannot not be paid where a person is performing duties which are below him. Yeah. So it's also important for us to also to appreciate, to say you cannot be able to be paid the responsibility allowance under you. For example, you say, I'm performing the role of for argument's sake, there's an accountant and there's an assistant accountant, and the assistant accountant has resigned, and the accountant is saying, I'm performing two roles. No, by virtue of you being the accountant, you're also supposed to perform the duties of the assistant accountant and also the accounts assistant. Only that these people are just helping you to perform your duties. So it's always important for you to also, you are not be getting, or you are not act on a lower position, or you cannot you only act on a senior position, or you cannot get a responsibility allowance for a lower position, but you can get a responsibility allowance on a position that is on the same level, for example, with you, and you have got the capacity to carry out the responsibilities of that particular office. So that's what you need to appreciate as when we talk about the responsibility allowance and also the acting appointment. Thank you so much.